At first, it was just a job. A missing person. No body, no trail. But people don't disappear like this, not quietly. And not all the same way. That's when I knew this wasn't about finding someone. It was about figuring out where they all went. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So, there's this clan of hill dwarves over in Rowan's Peak, which brought me on to look for one of their family members who went missing a while back. Fella that goes by the name Bodrick. One of them dreamer types, you know? Always looking to the horizon instead of what's in front of him. Well, it didn't take long to pick up the scent, as he'd hooked up with one of those traveling circus deals. A bunch of vagabonds. Criminals hiding in plain sight, most likely, but what do I know? Anyways, I had a chat with the ringleader, and he remembered our friend. Shot himself and his new companion, a giant weasel from my understanding, out of a cannon. Through the tent, and were never heard from again. Still has some debt to pay off, if I ever find him apparently. But that's none of my business. I just needed to find the fella. Well, the ringleader pointed me in the direction of where this took place. An open field some trek northward, so I headed off. But along the way is when things started to take a turn. Stopping at a roadside tavern one night for some grub and a drink is when I made a discovery that changed the course of my investigation. Bodrick wasn't the only missing person around these parts. In fact, this inn had almost an entire wall covered in posters that indicated a mass disappearance. Now that's wild, I thought. Don't get me wrong. We live in a wild realm, where all sorts of monsters or magic make their home. And people meet, or have met, some very gruesome fates because of it. But this seemed like something different. The patrons, at least the mostly sober ones, say they all just walked off. I needed a little more than a drunk's word if I was to take this seriously. So I sat down to have a word with the barkeep. And this is when a transition happened. She'd been giving me the old shifty eyes ever since I walked in here, so I figured this was going to cost me. But I had to know what was going on. Well, she hobbled over without looking at me, poured an ale, then leaned in real close-like, and said she would tell me the same thing she tells everyone else. Follow the blushing hens. I crooked an eyebrow, then tossed a few coins onto the bar top. She snatched them up, and before I could even ask, she disappeared into a back room and never so much as poked her head out again. I shook my head. Follow the blushing hens. Taking a sip of ale, I got up, then traced my steps back over to the wall of missing persons. Nothing really stood out to me as I pondered the different faces, then scratched my chin. Maybe some fresh air would help. The thick haze from the blackened fireplace and loud chatter was beginning to get on my nerves. But while walking to the entrance, and as I was searching in my tunic for a snout and light, I tripped over a satchel that was laying out from under a stool. I turned to apologize, but no one was sitting there. So I bent down to move the bag. And then I had to take a beat. A crude, rose-colored looking bird was stitched onto the front flap. Looking around, I didn't see anyone taking notice. So I picked up the satchel and hurried outside. No one followed me. So I found a quiet place around back. Now, coincidences aside, what are the odds that I find this just after I was told to follow the blushing hens? I rolled the bag over in my hands, then examined the patch again. Yeah, it sure could be a blushing hen, I suppose. But the only thing inside was some loose tobacco and a small bit of torn parchment with the words Lighthouse Alchemist written upon it. That's it. Well, that lingering smell reminded me of why I wanted to come out here in the first place. So I lit a small snout, then took a long drag and sat with my confused thoughts for a moment. A warm light turned on and bathed the grass as a pair of men came ambling out of the tavern. My eyes traced over their movements as I was thinking. Then I quickly looked back. Were my eyes playing tricks on me? Or was that more blushing hens I saw on the underside of this man's cloak? Quickly, I tore the patch off the bag and shoved it into my pouch along with the parchment. Pinched off the smoldering snout, then ran over to the men. Turns out, they were local boys. Farmers. Just out for a quick nip before continuing on to a market for selling their produce. The big one said I could hitch a ride in the wagon if I wanted to see where he purchased the cloak. I didn't know a thing about the design or who made it. Or so he says. But I decided to tag along in the back with the rest of the melons nonetheless. Wild goose chase or not, I'm seeing this through. It was a cold morning when I was knocked awake by a bumpy cobbled road. I didn't sleep well anyways. Too many dreams of dancing birds and missing faces. I shook off that feeling and got my bearings. We just arrived in a rather lively outdoor market. All the vendors were preparing for the day, and a few different people were already navigating the stalls looking for the freshest produce. Maybe they're chefs or something. I nodded to the men who brought me here, then hopped off the back, and they pointed me to a small shack just outside of the market called the Lost and Found. That's interesting, I thought, and started making my way over when another missing persons board caught my attention. This one was much the same, maybe with a few less posters on it. I shook my head and continued on. The shop was warm, inviting, and downright confusing. From toys and trinkets to cloaks and bags, the shelves were lined with the blushing hen design. How have I never seen these before? Just what was going on? The shopkeep wasn't much help either. A giant of a man, incredibly friendly, maybe overly so, but who claimed the hen was his own creation. Just a good bit of marketing that took off. I didn't buy it, but decided to change the subject to the missing persons board. Now this is when it got stranger. He told me that not everyone who's missing is lost. But if I was looking for answers, I should check the old lighthouse on the outskirts of town. The lighthouse. I remembered the piece of parchment in my pocket. Then met the shopkeep's eyes for a moment. Nothing. He just smiled, then handed me a small blushing hen pendant and said, "I hope you find what you're looking for." This didn't sit well with me. I didn't know if I was getting closer or further from the truth of what happened to these people. But following this enigma seemed to just give me more and more questions. But then again, that's part of my job, I suppose. So I pushed on. Those damn hens were everywhere now. Kids, adults, even the damn dogs had collars with the design. And the lighthouse didn't offer much either. Just a bunch of aged books, experimental potions that have gone cold from neglect, and Clearly, someone used to live here, but now they too are gone. I sat down, then rubbed my face in quiet frustration, and was just about to light another snout when a pink-colored image caught my attention. A piece of parchment must have fallen off the desk, as it was now half hidden on the floor. And, well, this was interesting. Upon it were two hand-drawn images. One of a rose-colored chicken, highly detailed, not like these simple little things I've been seeing everywhere else lately. And the other of a rose-colored egg, with 2 question marks underneath. It appears I've stumbled on someone who, at least initially, seems to have been heading down the same path I'm on right now. Well, I put these drawings with the rest of my findings and walked out to stretch in the afternoon sun. Oh, man. I'm not sure where this is all taking me, or why I'm letting some kind of fate guide me here, but now that I know I'm not the only one with questions, it gives me a little hope to keep digging in this fool's errand. And, well, you know, I still have a dwarf to track down, wherever he is.